No, I'm gonna give you to the count of 3, Stitch. 1.
Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. In this video, I will be showing you how to create this realistic Stitch cake from the new Disney Lilo and Stitch live action movie. Well, is it new? Because this video is pretty late, so technically it's not new, but you know what I'm talking about. So let's get into it. Yes, I know. I made my structure off camera, but I do have a treat for you all. I did create a structure video that I will be releasing after the Stitch video, so just look out for that. So first things first, I made my structure and then I made my Rice Krispie treats from scratch. So all I did is I popped a bunch of marshmallows into the microwave, warmed them up, put them in my bowl, throw Rice Krispies on it, and then just mix it together, and whatever stuck I used. So all I'm doing is just using my cutout template of Stitch, and I'm just gauging where I should fill in the Rice Krispie treats. When it comes to working with Rice Krispies treats, personally, I feel like working with a wet, clean hand is ideal because wearing gloves, it just sticks everywhere and it's a hot mess. So yeah, after I'm happy with how his body is looking, it's time to stack my cake. So obviously I'm gonna go with my favorite combo. It's a vanilla bean cake with a dark chocolate ganache. And if you're wondering why my cake look dry, it's not dry. It's just frozen, because working with a frozen cake to sculpt is the best thing you could ever do. Basically, I'm just sticking my cake to my structure using my dark chocolate ganache, kind of like a glue, and then filling the middle with a nice thin layer and just stacking the other one on top of it. Next, I will be carving my cake, but before that, I am putting down my plastic wrap because it does help with the cleanup. Now I'm taking my cutout of Stitch just to get the shape of his head so I could have something to start off with. I've said this a million times, when it comes to carving a cake, you need to carve off a little at a time. Don't just go in there cutting like you're just trying to get cake off. No. Carving is the most crucial part of any sculpted cake because it can make or break your cake. Now that I've pretty much got the basic shape of his head, I'm just going to start shaving off little pieces at a time until I'm happy with it. Once you see me start patting down, then you know I'm about to put down that knife soon because I'm pretty much done. Next, I will be ganaching my entire cake. So for this cake, I'm using my dark chocolate ganache. Now, I've gotten a few requests asking for my dark chocolate ganache recipe. I don't really have a recipe, I just have something that I use for all of my sculpted cakes because it works perfectly for me. So that being said, I will give it to you. For those who don't know, when it comes to making a dark chocolate ganache, it's always a 1:2 ratio. Meaning, let's say for example, you have 200 grams of chocolate, so you will be pairing your 200 grams of dark chocolate with 100 grams of whipping cream. So for this cake, I think I used 800 grams of dark chocolate, and then I paired it with 400 grams of whipping cream. Well, technically it is 400 milliliters of whipping cream. Milliliters, grams, literally the same thing. So that being said, even though I'm supposed to have 400 grams of whipping cream, I do minus 10 away from the whipping cream just so I could get a little thicker consistency on the ganache. But it works for me, and then once it's put in a refrigerator, it hardens and it's perfect for when it's time for me to start my details, because normally my cake is out of the refrigerator for a very long time. So the hard ganache really helps keep the cake together. At this moment, I'm using my offset spatula and my flexible smoother to add my chocolate ganache to my cake. And then you will see that I get a little annoyed because this is taking so long, so I just started using my hands. Once I've got the first layer on, I will add a second layer on top of it because I want the surface to be as smooth as possible before adding the modeling chocolate. This portion of the video is going to take a while, so just enjoy the background music. After taking a trip to the refrigerator, you can see that my cake and my ganache is fully set. And now it's time for my favorite part, all of the details. So, as you can see, I just took a cutout of Stitch's face and I cut out his eyes. And then I basically just put it to the cake, mapped out his eyes, mapped out his mouth, cut out his eyes, cut out the mouth portion, and then cover it with ganache, and we shall move on to the fun part. Once I've got Stitch's eyes and mouth completely covered in ganache, I will put it in the refrigerator. In the meantime, I made Stitch's eyes from Isomalt by Loran. I've gotten it from Michael's, I think. And then all I did was follow the instructions on the package, add black food coloring, pour the mixture into a round dome mold, and boom, that's his eyes. As you can see, I just popped his Isomalt eyes in and then took modeling chocolate, and then it's time to fill in his eyelids and his under eye. Just referring back to my template just to make sure he begins to look like Stitch a little bit. Trust the process, trust the process. Right here, I'm just using my thumb just to smoothen the edges of the modeling chocolate into the cake, because once I put the overlay of modeling chocolate over this, I want everything to be as smooth as possible. And now it's time to repeat the same step on the other eye. I'm just using my fingers to pat down the modeling chocolate just to make sure it's nice and smooth. That's the key of a successful cake, making sure everything is smooth and blended perfectly. Now that I'm happy with how his eyes are looking, it's time to fill in his mouth portion. So I'm just using black modeling chocolate, making sure it's nice and smooth on the inside of his mouth, and then trimming off the excess edges. Once I've got his mouth pretty much done, then I added some sticks to his shoulders off camera so I can start building his arms and his hands. Now that I've got the base of his arms pretty much done, I'm just using my fingers to make sure that the modeling chocolate is nice and smooth in the shoulder areas. And then I overlaid my final piece of modeling chocolate to his face, and now it's time to bring Stitch to life. Basically, I'm just making sure that the modeling chocolate is nice and smooth. There are no air bubbles. And then just trimming off the excess and referring to my picture just to make sure it looks like him just a little bit. Here, I'm just using my fondant tools just to add all of Stitch's features. So in the front of his mouth, it has like this, I don't even know what to call it, but that's how it looks to me, so that's what I did. And then at the top of his head, he has like this little portion of hair that sticks up. And now I'm taking my, I don't even know what this tool is called, but I normally use this tool to make any type fur, any type hair texture. So all I'm doing is just stippling, that's what I call it. Stippling and pulling, like just making as much hair texture as possible. The deeper you go into the modeling chocolate, the more texture shows up on the cake. Since we're here, just waiting for me to texture this cake, I will say that I apologize if the content isn't coming out as fast as anyone else. It is hard for me because it's just me to do the editing, it's just me to do the cake making, it's just me to coordinate, do everything, on top of being a mom, on top of having a full-time career in architecture. So just bear with me. I'm trying my best here. So just stick around and you will not be disappointed. Okay. So yes, I'm still adding texture to this cake. Texture took a long time. Next, I will be adding his ears to the cake. I did use my template to gauge how long his ears are, because at the beginning of this, my daughter's like, Mommy, I think Stitch's ears is a little too tiny because his ears is much bigger than that. I'm like, okay, girl, give me a break. I know what I'm doing here, okay? So, yeah, we just making sure his ears match his body. So the main reason of me making the structure for the ears a little smaller than his actual ears is because Stitch has cuts in both of his ears. So if I made the structure to match the actual size of his ear, I wouldn't be able to put in the cuts onto his ears. So, I mean, that's why I did it. It kind of makes sense in my head, and then it works out while I was doing his ears. So I guess it works out for everyone, right? So here, see? I'm literally just making the cuts into his ears right now, and I had no issue with the structure or even being close touching the structure. So once I've got pretty much everything done on one ear, I'm going to do it on this ear so I can show you exactly what I did. After placing the pink modeling chocolate ear piece onto the structure, I took a blue long band of modeling chocolate and I wrapped it around the sides of the ear just to make that trim around the edges of his ear, and then I will fill in the back with more blue modeling chocolate. And then here I'm just adding the front flap of the ear and then just repeating the same step for the bottom portion of the ear. Also, another key to making a successful realistic cake is to always blend. No matter how long it takes, it's just like makeup. You have to blend everything. If it's not blended well, it will not look great at all. Okay, we are officially naming this tool the stippling tool. Okay, it makes hair fur texture, period. So I'm taking my stippling tool and I'm adding the hair texture to the inner portions and outer portions of his ear. Next, we have to add another cut into this ear. That's exactly what I'm doing right now. I think right here, this part, I kind of touched the structure, which I was trying to avoid, but I mean, it worked. Next, I will be adding his nose onto the cake, making sure it's nice and straight and it fits his face proportionally. In order to make his nose, I just used the cutout template that I have of Stitch's face, took a piece of black marlin chocolate, rolled it into a ball, put it onto my template, shaped it to match the template, and that's about it. Stuck it on the cake and boom. Next, I will be adding the highlights to Stitch's face. So in order to achieve this, I just mixed white edible dust with water, basically to make a paint, and then I just added it to my paint brushes, painted it onto his face, and then just make sure everything's blended. After adding the highlights to his face, it's time to add some contour to the top of his lip. Okay, beauty queen. After that's done and it's nice and blended, then we will move on to his body. All I'm doing at the moment is just adding black petal dust into the top portions of his lip that leads up to his nose. Once I'm happy with that, it's time to move on to adding the marlin chocolate to his entire body, making sure that there are no air bubbles, everything is nice and smooth, and that's about it. At this point, my gloves started to get on my nerves because if the gloves aren't as fitted, trying to make sure that everything is nice and smooth, you will get like little dents from the gloves into your modeling chocolate. So at this point, I'm like, I need them off. I need this to be as smooth as possible so I could be done with this. At this point, I'm sure you noticed my clothes changed a few times already. It's been days at this point working on this thing. So I'm just trying to get it done. So right now I'm just adding his little chest because his chest has much more hair than the rest of his body. So I'm just adding that portion of modeling chocolate into the cake, making sure the sides are nice and smooth. Just a tip on how to get your modeling chocolate smooth: water and massage. That's all. Next, I added his toes and his feet onto the cake. To achieve that, all I did was I took 4 balls of modeling chocolate, stuck it to the cake, blended it to the cake with my modeling tools, and then just used the ball tool to create the indents for the black portion of the toenails, and then just stuck in some black balls of modeling chocolate, and bada bing, bada boom, that's his toes. Now, remember in my last video, I told you I'm not good at hands. So if you're looking for someone to teach you how to do hands, I am not that person because I struggle myself. I don't even know how I got these to look like this. I know it took hours and hours and hours. So yeah, let's skip the hands part and let's move on to the easy part. The stippling tool is back out. Yep. So we will be using the stippling tool to add all the fur hairy texture to his body. Now remember, the deeper you go into the modeling chocolate, the more texture you will get. So that's what I'm doing at this moment. Finally, the texture of Stitch is completely done. Now for his teeth, all I did was I took my template, I placed a parchment paper on top of it, took out all of my white pieces of modeling chocolate, shaped each piece to match his teeth on the template, and then basically just stuck everything onto the cake, and that's his entire mouth. Also, I did add a hot pink / red piece of modeling chocolate at the back of his mouth just to have that illusion that he has a tongue, but there isn't much detail to it. So after that's pretty much done, it's time to add the highlights to his chin and his body, basically by using the same techniques that I used for his face. At this point, I had an epiphany, and I'm like, I wanted him to be me and Muggin. But then I changed my mind. I'm like, let's change his eyes, open him up a little wider, just to make him look like he's happy. So I did that off camera, and I also added a little bit of blue edible food dust on the inner portions of his ear. Next, I'm adding my edible sand to my cake board. OMG, I got a comment, I don't know if it was on YouTube Shorts or an Instagram reel. Someone said, is that real sand on your keyboard? Why would I put real sand on my keyboard? That'll make no sense. No, it's just graham cracker crumbs. That's all it is. Then I made some fondant seashells using my fondant molds from Michaels. I feel like it would give the cake board a nice touch, like he's actually on the beach. Then I found these mini ice cream cones in Walmart. So I'm like, this would be a nice touch to the cake because he actually had an ice cream in the movie. So I got the ice cream cone from Walmart, got some buttercream, colored it pink, made it look like it was ice cream, placed it in his hand. And then I also found the sunglasses on Amazon. So I made a mold out of it. Then I molded the frame out of fondant, and then I poured black isomalt for the lens of the glasses, and then I added it to the cake. And that's about it. This cake is completely done. I am so happy with it. It took forever, but it all was worth it in the end. I actually got a comment from Disney on Instagram, like, are you kidding me? Disney commented on my stuff. Anywho, if you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Hit that bell button to get notifications on when I do finally post. And also, in the comments, let me know what you would like to see next. I know it's probably going to be structures from you guys. I've got that for you. But what would you like to see after structures? So see you in the next one. Bye.